Hi everyone, good evening. Hope you all are doing well. And as you all know, today we are here for one of our most uh, waiting event. Basically, you all guys are waiting for this event for very long, and but now we are here with this event. The event is Approach Towards Interview, and for this event, we have Mr. Pratik Anand with us. He is a product engineer at Sprinkler. Welcome, sir. Welcome to Squad Growth. How are you doing?
And yeah, thanks for joining in, everyone.
We are good to go, sir. We
So,
can we can start the event.
okay, all right. So, talking about interviews, and basically, it is the interview season, and it can get very stressful for students. So, when you're talking about interviews, there are mainly two parts to it. The pre-interview phase, where you have to actually get selected for the interview. You have to make the cut so that you can appear in the interviews. And then you have the actual interview phase where you will be asked the questions, you will go through the various rounds. And then, depending on how it goes, you will be selected or you won't be. So about the pre-interview phase, it is mostly about your CV, the projects that you have done, and basically how your online presence is on LinkedIn or on other job and networking sites. If we have to talk about these things, we can go with the first and the most important thing, which is the CV. So there is a lot of common advice, and I think everyone already knows about most of that advice. Like, you should have one page of your CV, and it should contain everything in bullet points. There should not be full sentences and all that. I think everyone already knows that. But even then, most of the people do not actually follow that. Even now, I see that the majority of the CVs, they still have complete sentences and they have, a lot of noise. We actually don't want that. We want short sentences, and just one page is enough, especially for freshers. If you have a lot of projects and they are interesting projects, then sure, go ahead with 2 pages. But if you're going with 2 pages, you should have complete 2 pages. So that is one very common thing that almost everybody knows, but very few people actually follow. Apart from that, when you are talking about the CV, you have various sections in that. You have your, work experience section. It can have your internships or anything that you have done related that has actually worked in the industry, even your own projects or anything at all. Then you have your project section, which you have done, but they are not related to the industry. They are your own projects that you have coded yourself or programmed yourself and worked on them. Apart from that, you have your education, your roles and responsibilities, positions of responsibilities, and all those sections. So the most important here is the work experience section and the project section. So people, what they do is they actually put their projects there. It is good, but they don't actually explain what they have achieved from the project. So that is extremely important. Like what you have done and what you achieved from the project. People will put up various points about their project that they use this, and then they achieve some very vague scenario from that project. So that is not helpful for the people who will be interviewing them on the basis of that CV. So you should put your, the achievements of that project in very concrete language. Like when you made that project, you used this language or you used this technology. Your aim was to, let's say you're making a simple chart application. I'll give an example. You're making a simple chart application. You will say that you wanted to make a chart application, and the aim was that you wanted it to be scalable. You wanted it, many people to be able to use it effortlessly, and you wanted it to be, let's say, secure. So that will be one of the points that you should put up. Then you can tell us about the languages that you have used, the various technologies you have used, and then you can go ahead and point out what you actually achieve from it. Maybe you are not able to achieve the scalability, but you should put up how many people will be able to actually use your app in a real-time environment. I mean, obviously, not everyone will be joining it. Actually, scaling it up is difficult, but you should put up that the expected load or the expected number of people that your app can serve will be this. Even if no one has actually used that app, or if you know your limitations of your own technology, you should put that. Apart from that, you should put up the links of these projects as well, whether they are working or not, whether they are still in the development phase. You should put up the link, the GitHub link, or a deployed app if you have that. That's even better. You can even put both of those links, the deployed app as well as GitHub. That is the best case scenario. But if you don't have the link, it is okay, but you should try to. So what we often do is we will actually open up your project, we will go through the code and we will actually analyze what you have done. Obviously, we won't run it. It is time consuming, especially for a lot of CVs. But we will actually go through the code, we see what you have done. And we try to find out various patterns or any mistake that you have made. We actually do that. And depending on what you have written on your CV, we will try to cross-reference that. Like, for example, this happened that someone had written that they are good in object-oriented programming, and in one of their projects, we saw that it totally was, just a single function, about 500 lines of code, and just a single function. And they are saying that they are good at object-oriented. So that is not a good scenario. You should just remove that project. It's okay. You don't want to work on that project for that long. I mean, if you made it in your first year, you didn't know OOP then. You can just remove it. It's okay. But what is on your CV and what you are linking, what you are showing in your projects, they should match. So that is one thing. Apart from that, when you are linking these projects, they should be, at least readable. People should be able to read the code and understand what you are doing. That should be important. And there's another thing that in recent times, there are a lot of clone projects, clone of Instagram or a clone of LinkedIn, something like that. A lot of people make those, but they are very common now. You should not ideally put those on your CV. So what happens is various institutions, they gave out the code, they explain how to code this application, and then you can code it yourself, or they sometimes even just give away the code. So it is not a very special case now. You should try to avoid that. I mean, you can do that. You should actually code that. You should learn from it, but you should not put it on your CV. So leave it out from the CV. Do it yourself. If you have any other ideas, if you can build upon that, if you have some inspirational thing to do, you can add to that particular project and then put it on your CV. But don't put an Instagram clone on your CV. That is actually bad. Most people will, see it is an Instagram clone. 1,000 of those clones exist, and there's no way to understand whether you actually understand that code or whether you have actually coded it and just read the code. So avoid those things. Instead, put up something more, even if it's a simple app, put up something more interesting, something that will get the interviewer to think what exactly is going on, whether it is a new idea or not. That is more important than just putting up a clone. So that is one thing about projects. Your projects should be, even if they're not complex, they should be at least interesting in the domain that you want to apply. If you are applying for an ML role, there should be some interesting ML project. If you're applying for a front end or back end, likewise, an interesting project. It doesn't have to be a full-fledged clone. Instead, build something on your own that is more effective, more fun to, even for the interviewer to understand. So that's about the projects. And let's see. Um, when you are making the CV, these CVs actually they go through a round where they are monitored by the machine. You know about ATS, applicant tracking systems. So your CVs should be ATS compliant, and the simplest way to check that is take out the PDF export of your CV and then open it in your notepad or in a simple text editor. And when you see that, when you open it in your notepad, you will see that a lot of formatting and a lot of things are stripped away and just the text remains. So that is a simple way to check whether your CV is ATS compliant or not. So you should do that because a lot of times, a lot of headings and a lot of points, they just get mixed up everywhere, and it is not easy for the ATS system to track it. So you should make sure that the most of the data or the most crucial points of your CV are ATS compliant. It is always not possible to be 100% compliant, but you should make sure that most of the things are there. Can get most of the things across. So we have talked about your CV, the format of the CV, number of pages, and those simple stuff. We have talked about projects. We have talked about LinkedIn, and we have academic projects also. Academic projects are interesting, but they will often, I mean, research projects, academic projects or research projects. So they are interesting, but they will often be very limited. Like most of the academic projects are ML or AI related, and there are security related projects as well as basic stuff like DBMS projects and OS projects. So when you are putting those in your CV, you have to be especially careful about them because let's say you put up a DBMS project, you just build up something which can, let's say, translate from a NoSQL schema to a SQL schema. So that is a good project, but people don't typically mention the performance of that project or what they achieved from that project or where it could be used. They just say that they had this problem and they solved it, but they do not tell us about the metrics of that. So those metrics are important, especially when it comes to academic projects. You can talk about the technology, you can talk about what you used, and you should talk about the application where it will be used. Ideally, even if it won't be used, you should talk about where it can be used. So that is something about especially important for academic projects. So that's some of the most important stuff about your CV. Uh, there are other things that I think everyone already knows here, that when you have a CV, you should edit it according to the role. You should take out projects or add projects depending on what role you are applying for. And you can keep multiple versions, or you can keep a list of projects that you have and remove those projects that you don't want for that particular role, and then build a new CV with that and use it. Yeah, basically have a big CV with multiple projects, multiple internships if possible, multiple listings, and you remove the things that you don't want and export it for a role. So that is one simple way to keep track of your CV so that you don't have to again and again build. But that uh, you should regularly update your CV. That's kind of obvious. Let's see.
Sorry, sir. What you just said?
Yeah, you should regularly update your CV. As soon as
Yeah.
you get a project or you have something new to add to your CV, you should update it because people will be crawling across your LinkedIn and looking at your CV. That happens. So you should keep it updated and the latest stuff as much as possible. Apart from that, once it has crossed that ATS, once it is in the hands of your interviewer, it should be as easy to understand as possible. So you have those bullet points, you have those facts and figures, you have the achievements. Those are important. One more thing is that your CV should be easily comprehensible in one word. Like people have multiple columns in their CV, like achievements and areas of responsibilities, stuff like that on shorter left side. That is one very common CV template, stuff like that on one side, and your projects and experience on other side. So that is good. You can put a lot of stuff on that CV, but it is not easy to comprehend. When it is in the hands of an interviewer, you will see that they will have to constantly switch between those columns. So you can make a different CV, kind of a compressed CV, which will have just one flow, one direct flow, one single column, so that you can just read it from top to bottom, and everything can send across to your interviewer. So that is easier for the interviewer to understand and helps a lot. But yeah, many different universities have their own format. So if they have their own format, or if you feel that you won't be able to use just one single column, you have a lot of stuff, then it's okay. You can keep two columns, but as long as possible, try to keep just one single column so that it's easy to understand. So I think that's all about CVs. If you have anything to add, anything to ask about CVs, I'm open to questions for that. We can go ahead with interviews also if you don't have any questions for CVs.
So for CV, we don't have any question. We have question for interviews.
Yeah.
So and we will take all
Okay.
those
So
questions at the end of the section.
yeah, yeah. So this was basically the pre-interview phase. It was regarding your CV. Similarly, most of the points about your CV will also apply to your LinkedIn profile, adding all the experiences, what roles you did. If you can get any recommendation from some people, that is also great, but no one looks at that. It's good to have, but not a necessity. So that's about your LinkedIn. Most of the stuff will be covered in your CV anyway. So now coming to the interviews, the core of the whole process. Once you have cleared everything, you will have your interview, hopefully, and it can be very stressful. So the most important thing to remember there is that you should, try to don't get overwhelmed. It is very easy to get overwhelmed. Try to remain calm. Just collect yourself, take deep breaths, and just understand that it is not the end of the world. The other person taking your interview, they are also, they won't be very harsh, they won't be unfriendly, extremely unfriendly. They're just here to judge you. It is not the end of the world. You have to understand that. So, just be calm and collected, be open, and be very, interactive with the interviewer. Interactiveness is extremely important in an interview. We will come to the interactiveness point sometime later, but let's start from the top. So in an interview, you should talk clearly, talk slowly, and try to explain as much as you can in an interview. It's okay if you take more time than expected, but you have to, get your point across. You may repeat your point multiple times if it takes. It's totally okay. The interviewer will tell you if they are running out of time. You can, try to wrap up then, but you should try and get your point across as much as possible, even if it takes multiple times. So that is extremely important for an interview and any interview, whether it be technical, whether it be HR. It is extremely important for any interview. So be clear and don't be very fast in an interview. When you're talking in an interview, you should try and look straight into the camera. You might be writing problems, you might be, solving stuff on your paper or anywhere else, but you should try and look into the camera because it gives an impression that you are there. You are not just, absent-mindedly uh, just working through the problems. You should look into the camera, try to explain what you're doing. Again, this is a very common advice that most people already know, but very few follow it. You have to explain what you are doing through the problems, what your thought process is, how you are tackling that problem. So most people, what they do is they will read a problem, they will ask their doubts, and they will get started with the problem, thinking that they have interacted, they have, asked the doubt. So the interviewer will probably know what you are going to do. But chances are we won't know when we are saying your code for the first time. You should try to explain that. You will be coding this solution. You will be using this particular algorithm or this particular data structure. You should talk about that. And if you want to, you can add little bits of information for it. Like uh, a lot of people use C++, but while you're working in a dev job, you won't be using C++ in most roles. So the people who are in the dev roles, they don't know the latest developments in C++, and I have seen this happen multiple times when you're using some new feature of C++. C++ 17 brought a lot of new features, but the devs, they don't know about it. So they will look at your code and they will think that you have written something wrong, but you know that it is not wrong. It is just a new feature. So you should try and explain that to the dev. This is especially true for the STL functions. The new stuff gets added every time, and the dev does not know that what you're doing is actually correct. You should try to explain that. Take some time. Explain that this is a new feature which was introduced in this version, or if you're using Java similarly, you might have new features. You should explain that this happened, and just go through with it. Talk with them and explain the solution to them and then code. And as you're coding, it is best that you should try and explain the code to them as you code. I mean, people might explain it before and then stay silent while they're coding. You should try, just talk to yourself, even that is okay. Talk to yourself what you're doing about, what variables will be used, how the code flow will be going. You can talk about that as you're coding. If it is extremely annoying to you, like sometimes it happens when you're coding and you find yourself talking about it annoying. You can avoid that, but I would say that ideally practice about it. There's that. Uh, I have heard about it. I have not actually seen people do this, but a lot of developers use a duck. They will explain the problem or something to the duck, and they will try to, have a mock conversation with it. And then sometimes it hits them that what they're doing is wrong, and they can, you know, get across that problem. So that is something that you can do. Keep anything at all, keep any inanimate object, and try to converse with it when you're solving a problem. It will help a lot, especially during interviews, so that you can tell the person in front of you, the interviewer, that what you are doing and how you are achieving it. That is extremely important when you're trying to solve a technical problem. Even then, you will not always get the question right. You will have to clarify, you will consider the various bounds, and you will go with your choice of solution. But it is not always true that you will get the solution right, and that is totally fine. It is an interview. The interviewer knows that you are in a stressful situation. You have to talk about the various situations, various algorithms you can use, and then you will code the algorithm. Maybe you went wrong. So what the interviewer will do, they will typically give out hints. You can use those hints. Those hints are not tricks. Don't get too worried about that. That the interviewer is trying to, trick you or get you towards the wrong path. They will typically not do that at the start. They will give you hints, normal hints. You can understand that hint and see where it can fit in your problem. If it can fit, use that hint and try to explain how you are progressing with your problem. That will help a lot. And apart from that, there will be obviously sometimes trick hints that the interviewer will ask why you use this and why not something else. Especially in DP or graph problems, that happens in. I mean, those are very easy to get tricked in. So when you are solving those kinds of questions, keep your mind in some basically frame your mind in such a way so that you know what the absolute values or the base conditions that you have established what they are, so that you cannot be easily tricked. You can explain what your assumptions are, and the interviewer might say that no, that was wrong, you should instead do this. You should validate against your initial assumption whether they are actually tricking you or not. Chances are they won't be, but if they are, you can easily understand them, have a short conversation with them about what your assumption was and whether it was right or wrong. And if it was a trick, they will tell you about it. I mean, they won't, pester you about it. They will, uh, I mean, if you find a trick, then it's okay. They will say, yes, that was a trick, and you can go ahead. And yeah, that's about it for, especially for these kind of problems. Apart from that, it is okay if you're not an extremely great problem solver, if you're not extremely great at DSA, if you're not extremely great at CP, it's okay. I mean, most people are not. What is more important is your problem solving skills and your ability to adapt. They will always, almost always change the problems. Once you have completed the initial problem, we have a backup problem so that we can challenge your initial assumptions or change the way you think. We can make a greedy problem into a DP by adding some constraints or adding some conditions to that. So you have to be on your feet and adapt to those, and that can be stressful, especially in an interview. So what you can do is you should ideally start from scratch in those situations. You can totally throw away what your initial logic was, what your initial plan was, and go from the start and think it through whether these new conditions will make any changes towards your problem, what it will affect how you should change your code. Because if you're trying to change just edit your initial code to get the second part of the problem correct, you will most likely face a lot of problems, and you might even get a totally wrong answer. So you should ideally start from scratch when you face these type of extensions to problems. So that's about the various problems that you can face. And yeah, take down during an interview. And it is always true that the interviewer might be wrong. As I said about the features that are introduced in various languages, they change with time, and the interviewer does not know. And similar to that, the interviewer is not constantly practicing DSA, but you are. So it is totally possible that you are in the right and the interviewer is in the wrong. What you can do is ask why the interviewer said so. Like it happened with me. I don't really remember the situation exactly from that time, but the interviewer said something that what I was doing was quicksort, but it was not quicksort. It was something else, and I don't really remember the situation right now. But yeah, at that moment I said, yeah, it is quicksort, and the interviewer just said, okay. But that was wrong for me. I should not have said that. I should have instead said that, no, what I did was something else. It is not quicksort, it was something else, and explain what I did. And then they can, analyze what the thought process was and whether the interviewer was wrong or not. They will understand that. It is totally okay if the interviewer is wrong. You should not obviously be, rude to them or point it in the face, no, you're wrong. You should, just tactfully point out, no, I was doing this. What you're saying is this, but my flow was slightly different, and that is why what I did was correct. You should just explain that. It's totally okay that you won't mind if you're tactful, if you're, just good about it. Apart from that, this was about the DSA side of your interviews. The DSA, most of the interviews, especially at your level, will be about the DSA, about CP and algorithm. But that is not all. Once you have interesting projects in your CV, you can totally make your interview about those projects. That has happened a lot with me. You can have interesting projects, totally, simple projects, but interesting, inspirational, anything at all. The interviewer will themselves want to ask more about those projects instead of plain and dry CP or DSA questions. You can make something new, totally new. Uh, Basically, you have those clone projects. You can make something in 3D using WebGL or various other canvas libraries, and those are very rare. Most people don't do that. So you can make something like that, and the interviewer will be more interested in those projects. And you can talk about the project, you can showcase the project, and it will save you from those difficult questions, because the interviewer has to ask yes questions, but they also have to judge you. So by taking up time with your interesting projects, you will be in the safe spot. You will be able to avoid those harder questions. So having good and fun projects in your CV helps a lot. And I think that about covers it. Apart from that, you should have fluidity during the interview. You will have to adapt to various situations, various scenarios. Maybe your internet is not working, maybe your PC froze up. You should have solutions to those, quickly solve that so that you can move forward with the interview. Those problems always happen. Sometimes your internet is not working, your PC froze up, anything can happen. My keyboard stopped working in the middle of an interview, anything can. So you should have backup solutions for those, and just be cool, just be collected, and don't get overwhelmed by anything. I guess that's all about interviews as well. So should
Yep.
we take questions? Yeah.
Yeah. Now we should take questions. There are a
Okay.
couple of questions. One second, please.
Yeah.
What to do if interviewer asks what it is written, asks the which I don't know. I think he or she want to ask what to do if interviewer asks something which I don't know.
Okay. So in that case, you can totally. I mean, it depends on what you don't know, whether it is a simple thing or a complex thing. So sometimes we ask problems which you have not studied till now. Basically, this happens when you are when you're interviewing for an internship position, or at the start of your fourth year. Even then, you have maybe not studied about DBMS, you have not studied about OS. So if you have not studied about it, you can just say that uh, I have not studied, and the interviewer will understand. They will ask you something else, or they will give you hints so that you can come up with your own solution. And if it is something relating to your projects, you should ideally know most of the things about your project, why you made a decision, why you use certain libraries. You should know most of them. But if you do not know anything, you can just point out that what you did was the commonly expected way to do that, or whether I mean, if you have written it in your code, you must have got it from somewhere. Maybe you got it from Stack Overflow, maybe you got it from some other forum. You should just tell that this was the problem I was facing, and I got the solution from here or from somewhere else, and then they will understand. And if it's about a DSA question, most people will just try to go through it, try to apply new things to it, and try to solve it however they can. It is not exactly correct. You can just say that what I am thinking is so and so, but I'm not sure if that is the correct approach. The interviewer will typically give you hints. They won't be rude. They won't mock you. Or anything. They will typically give you hints, or they will try to help you out with the thought process that you should. But even if you cannot get that, you should just say, sorry, I was not able to understand that. If you have any other questions, I can attempt that. You should just say that. It's totally okay. It will save both of your time. I
Mm,
mean, most of the time we will give you questions, and we have a ton of questions. So that helps both of us. So I guess that answers your question.
got it. Got it. Mm, have you ever noticed partiality during any interview?
Uh, I don't know. I mean, some people are partial. I mean, towards their college mates and towards the people they know, they can be partial. But you should, don't worry about it, because whatever has to happen will happen. You cannot, change the interviewer's mind. So you should just focus on what you have in your CV, what you have on your projects, and just make it so good that the interviewer cannot do any partiality. Just be so good that the interviewer has to be. I think that's the best way, because there will always be some sort of problem, some sort of situation over there. You should just be so.
Yeah. What goes in the mind of interviewer during an interview?
Okay, so that depends on mm, I mean, what phase of the interview. When you are just starting it, we are analyzing how they are, responding to the questions, how they typically talk, uh, whether they can understand what we are saying or not. Once we have provided a question, we will see how they are analyzing it, uh, what thought process they are applying, or how they are interacting with us. So I guess that is about it. I mean, further we will be analyzing the answer or the solution they are coming up with, but what goes in our mind is, I mean, nothing special. We are just looking at what you are doing and trying to understand why you're doing it that or what is going in your.
Yeah, got it, got it. Hmm. And one last question: how to increase the chances of getting selected in interview?
Okay, so it is there's always a certain luck, a certain randomness in interviews. You have to accept that whether you go through an interview or whether you fail an interview, there is always a certain part of luck involved. You have to understand that, and once you grasp that concept of luck, you will find it easier to move forward with it. So to maximize your chances of succeeding, what you should have is a good CV first and foremost. Interesting projects, good projects. If they are interesting, they should be good also. They should not be simple projects. They should be good also. And you should be as good at DSA as possible. You don't have to become a CP champion, but you should be good at DSA. So that is essential when you're talking about the pre-interview phase, your CV phase. You should have all those points from your CV. Your CV should be formatted well and everything that we have already talked about. But going forward during an interview, you should you don't always have to get the right answer across. That is a very important thing, and that will help you maximize the chances. You should explain what you are doing, why you are doing that. You should be interactive. That will actually help. You will not always get the correct answer. And I have noticed this that people who are extremely good at DS, good at CP, they are not always getting selected in their interviews. They also face difficulties. So it is clearly an indicator that just being good at some technical thing is not the best way to get selected in an interview. You have to make your soft skills also great. You have to talk patiently and get your point across to the interviewer so that you can maximize your chances of getting selected. You have a good CV, you have good projects, and you are able to interact with the interviewer so that they will prefer you, even if you don't get the problem correct. You should be able to adapt to the changes in problem. Sorry. And just show that you are good enough so that you can match that organization's technical requirements. Is that okay?
Got it, got it. Um, 1 second, sir. Let me check if there is any other question. Otherwise,
Yeah,
we will
sure.
stop the session. Hmm. So yeah, there is no new question. Thank you very much, sir, for providing huge amount of knowledge to our community. We learned a lot from you
Anytime.
and from your experience.
Thank you. It was great talking to you and a great experience to share everything. So yeah,
Definitely, sir.
I guess that's
Definitely. And people, I will provide the LinkedIn ID of sir, so you can contact him directly if you want to ask anything more. Right, sir?
yeah, sure.
Yep. So, yep. Thank you very much, sir. See you soon. And
Anytime.
thank you, people, for joining in, for listening to us, and keep learning, keep enjoying. 1 second, sir. 1 second. Let me
Yeah.
end the stream and then we'll. Thank you. Yeah. 1 second.